All right. Well, good morning. Welcome to our morning devotions. It's Friday. What do we got? May 30th. So Sunday is the first day of June, if you can imagine that. So time flies when you're having fun. Well, we're in First or Second Kings chapter 3. I posted verses 4 through 14. I entitled this Three Kings, Elisha, and the Defeat of the Moabites. And that's essentially what this is about. We have a miracle in the middle of this. There's interaction here between the kings of Edom, Israel, and Judah. And the only reason that Elisha assists them at all is because Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, is there because he has no interest in the king of Israel and he has no interest in the king of Edom. But he wants, for the sake of Jehoshaphat and Judah, that they win the day. And that's what this passage is about. So let's look into it. It's 27 verses, and it talks about Jehoram, who is the son of Ahab. This is Jehoram. He's the son of Ahab. He began to reign over Israel in Samaria. Now they're in the north. The 18th year of Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah. So again, we measure where these kings are in relationship to one another. So in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, who is the king in Judah, Jehoram begins to reign up in the north in Samaria. He reigns 12 years. In verse 2, it tells us what he did, what he doesn't do, and what he does do. It says in verse 2, it's interesting here, and he wrought evil in the sight of the Lord, but not like his father. All right, not like his father, that is in reference to Baal worship, and like his mother. Both things are mentioned here. He didn't follow in the religious tradition of Baal worship of Ahab and Jezebel. He said, for he put away the image of Baal that his father had made. So he puts away that. Nonetheless, he cleaved unto the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin. He departed not therein. That is, he still kept the golden calves. They're still there. That's still the sins of Jeroboam. This deep into the history of Israel, and it's going to keep up. This is the sins of Jeroboam. I mentioned this when we started this, all right? This is something that once a tradition gets put in place, and then it becomes nationalized, so to speak, it becomes the state religion. Or in this case, it's the state religion, but anything, it comes into a family. Once it becomes established in the family, or in a community, or in a state, or in a nation, it's almost impossible to get rid of it. And that's what's happened here. Jeroboam established it upon the dividing of the north and the south, and it still is lingering. It's still being practiced. So, verse 4 is where you introduce the problem. Okay, the problem is that Misha, who is in Moab, has had a contract with Ahab to provide sheep and wool. That is, there is a contract here. What did I call it? It's he was a major trading partner. Let me say it that way. It says this: Elisha, king of Moab, was a sheep master and rendered unto the king of Israel 100,000 lambs. Whoa. And 100,000 lambs and 100,000 rams with the wool. All right, so big trading partner here with Moab. But it came to pass when Ahab was dead that the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel. That is, this deal was off, and the king of Jehoram went out of Samaria the same time and numbered all Israel. So when this happens, Jehoram is now taking a census. All right, he wants to know how strong the north is. So the king of Moab, who has been this trading partner, bringing in all these lambs and rams and all this wool, says that deal is off. The next thing we see here is Jehoram starts the census of who is in Israel in the north, which undoubtedly would have included how many soldiers we have, because he concludes after this that he doesn't have enough to go and win the victory over Moab, and he goes down again to Jehoshaphat in the south and inquires whether or not Jehoshaphat will come and fight with him, just like it was with Ahab, all right? Jehoshaphat, when necessary, aligns with his northern brothers, no matter how corrupt they are. And remember what it says about Jehoshaphat. He did that was right in the eyes of the Lord. So here he is aligning with the north again. It says And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah. After the census, he gets a hold of the king in the south, saying, the king of Moab hath rebelled against me. That is, he's not providing this for us any longer. Wilt thou go with me against Moab to battle? Will you join your army? Again, before it was the Syrians, now it's the Moabites. Will you align yourself with me so we can go and fight, okay, against Moab? And here it is. It's the same words that Jehoshaphat told his dad. He said, I will go up. I am as thou art, my people as thy people, and my horses as thy horses. That is, we're just going to consolidate our forces and we'll fight together. Now, we've read that before when he got together with Ahab. And then he said, which way shall we go up? And he answered, the way through the wilderness of Edom. This is how we're going to approach Moab. We're going to go through Edom. And so, verse 9, we read this. So the king of Israel went and the king of Judah. Now they're together. And the king of Edom. So to go through Edom, they align themselves with Edom. And that's where I get the three kings. There's three kings together now. The king of Edom, the king of Judah, and the king of Israel. And it all started with the king of Israel because Moab has rebelled against him because they were trading partners, and he's cut that off. He said he's not going to cooperate with Ahab's boy, Jehoram. So let's press on here. He said, so the king of Israel went, and the king of Judah, and the king of Edom, and they fetched a compass. That is, they went around. I love that. So King James language. It says they went around the back. They fetched a compass of 7 days' journey, and there was no water for the host or for the cattle that followed them. So, see, when you got these huge armies, three armies, you got to have a line of a supply line. And in every battle, it's necessary. Even in these simulations that you can get to play on your phone of battles, you have to have a supply line from where the supplies are to get to the front so the battle can ensue. That supply line is just imperative. That has to be maintained. If you don't have a supply line, you won't get gasoline for your tanks and your trucks. If you don't have the supply line, you won't get food up to the men. I mean, there's so much more that goes into the actual war fighting, from how do you get it from where it's produced to up to the front. And that line has to be maintained. That is essential. Here it is in the scripture. That's essential to making sure the men on the front line have everything they need to get the job done. Well, what's happening here is because they're on this 7-day journey, and they got all these men, they got cattle, they got horses, they got everybody that goes to accompany the army, and they're running out of water. They're running out of water. That's what it is. All right. And this is what happens next. But Jehoshaphat said, verse 10, and the king of Israel said, this is Jehoram, alas, oh no. He said, the Lord hath called these three kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. The first thing he thinks, before he ever invokes the name of God, is he goes right to the bottom of the barrel by way of pessimism and said, the reason that we're together is because Jehovah's mad at us all, and we're just going to go in. We're going to be tired. We're going to be hungry. We're going to be thirsty. Our animals aren't going to be well prepared. And when we confront the Moabites, they're going to kill us all. That's what Jehoram's thinking. He's brought us out here to make us weak, so when the battle actually unfolds and we actually engage in the battle, the Moabites are going to have the upper hand because they're going to be fresh, they're going to be fed, they're going to be watered, and everybody's just going to be in better shape. And we're going to be, as far as the armies go, we're just going to be decimated only because of the route that we've taken. And then here's Jehoshaphat. But Jehoshaphat said, is there not here a prophet of the Lord? Let's ask him first before we take this route like, oh man, it's over. Now, it's not going to be over, but this was Jehoram. This is the son of Ahab. He's looking at things apart from God. And I think it's interesting here that apart from God, this is the way a lot of people think. I mean, we're at our end. We're just at our end. And Jehoshaphat says, well, wait, before you are this big Debbie Downer, let's ask God about what's going on. Isn't there a prophet around here to ask about how things are going? And it said, is there not a prophet of the Lord that may inquire of the Lord by him? the one of the king of Israel's servants. It's not even Jehoram. It's somebody that's just there caring for Jehoram. He says, answered and said, here is Elisha, the son of Shaphat, which poured water on the hands of Elijah, which just said it means he ministered to him. All right, he cared for him. All right, that these two guys were together. All right, and we've already looked at that, how close that was. And Jehoshaphat said, the word of the Lord is with him. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Edom went down to him. I love this. When you read this, you have three kings, Israel, Judah, and Edom, and they're all coming to the home of the prophet Elisha. And Elisha said unto the king of Israel, he's saying to Jehoram, what have I to do with thee? Why are you here? I got nothing to do with you. You following in the path of Jeroboam. I got nothing to say to you. I got nothing to say. He doesn't say it here, but he says, I got nothing to say to the king of Edom either, because you're not even an Israeli. All right. Okay. He says, that's not it. He said, what have I to do with thee? Get thee to the prophets of thy father and the prophets of thy mother. He says, if you want help, why don't you just go talk to the prophets of your father and mother? Go talk to the bottom of the barrel, these dullards that Jeroboam and the kings subsequent made the kings and the priests of the groves there of calf worship, or the prophets of Baal, if there's any still around. Go talk to them. What are you coming to talk to me for? When they really need help, they go to the guy that can really get the answers. Isn't that interesting? That's what's happening here. He says, what are you talking to me for? He says, and the king of Israel said unto him, nay, no, I can't do that, for the Lord hath called these three things together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. So he's still rehearsing this. This is why we've gone, and this is his opinion, and God's going to just wipe us out. So no, we can't leave. We need an answer. And Elisha said, as the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand. I love this. This is the same language that Elijah used. I stand as a servant before Jehovah. He is my master. All right. Jehovah is my master. He said, were it not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, I would not look toward thee nor see thee. If Jehoshaphat wasn't here with you, Jehoram, I wouldn't even be talking to you. The only reason I'm here is because of Jehoshaphat, not because of you. I mean, you should just go back and talk to the prophets that are up in Israel, those apostate pagans, try to get information out of them. The only reason I'm here is because Jehoshaphat's here. I love this. Like, yeah, I know you're the king of Israel, but as far as I'm concerned, he said, I wouldn't even see you. He said, I would not even look at you. He said, nor see you, that I mean, as far as I wouldn't entertain you or even consider the fact that you're here. Oh, man. And he says, and then he says this, but now bring me a minstrel. And it came to pass when the minstrel played, that is, Elisha asked for some music. Isn't that interesting? He said, do you have anybody here that can play? And they would have had men there that could play instruments, right? So a minstrel, somebody's playing an instrument, a lute or a harp or whatever, okay? Can you bring somebody? That the hand of the Lord, and that the hand of the Lord came upon him. So while he's relaxing, listening to the music, the hand of the Lord came upon him. All right, the instructions of the Lord. Now, of course, it's interesting here. God doesn't have hands, but it's anthropomorphically saying that the hand of the Lord is that which moves Elisha to make this decision. All right, so the hand of the Lord comes upon him while he's relaxing, listening to the music. I mean, there's something to say about that, right? Okay. He said, and this is what he says now. This is from the Lord. And he said, thus saith the Lord, make this valley full of ditches. So he's saying, dig these trenches in the valley here. He said, for thus saith the Lord, ye shall not see wind. And he's only going to list some things here that you expect to come with rain, a storm. That's what he's listing here. He's saying you're not going to see any of this, and still these ditches are going to be full of water. That's the point. That's the miracle. For he said, for thus saith the Lord, ye shall not see wind, neither shall ye see rain, yet the valley shall be filled with water, that ye may drink, both ye and your cattle and your beasts. And these, it says ditches here because it doesn't say wells. If somebody thinks that they're all digging so deep they're getting water, that's not what this is. They're just digging ditches. You know what a ditch is. Everybody, if you got one out in front of your house, if you live in the country, it's a place for water to flow so it doesn't, it's not over the road. Then there's conduits under your driveway so it will flow and not back up. All of that. It's a ditch. That's all they're doing. It's a ditch. It's a trench. And he says, just go dig these trenches. And what's going to happen by the hand of God is these trenches, without it raining, without any wind blowing in a storm and without any rain, they're going to be full of water. And that water is going to be what the army needs to refresh itself. That is what Elisha receives from the Lord. He said, and then it says, in verse 18, he said, but this is but a light thing in the sight of the Lord. He said, this is a small thing. Now, it's going to be big for you, but as far as God's concerned, he says this is a small thing. And isn't that the truth? The things that are so huge for us, how huge are they for God? Well, they're not. It's a small thing. For God, it's a small thing. The things that overwhelm us, for God, it's a small thing. I mean, the whole 3 armies are going to die out there from lack of thirst and conceivably be destroyed by the army they're going after. So their whole lives, the whole lives of all the armies of Israel, Judah, and Edom are on the line, and God's going to provide water. And while these guys are saying it's the end of us, it's the end of the powerhouse nations that we are, Elisha looks at him and said, that's a small thing. You see, it all depends on your perspective, isn't it? If you're seeing things from God's view or if you're seeing things from man's view. And that's why we want to think thoughts after God. That's why we want to read this and know this about ourselves, that this is the way we are. And before we begin to get way down in the dumps, we should find out from God what really is going on. We ask him, and if you lack wisdom, he says he'll give it, upbraideth not. All right, that it's a promise. So he said, it says in 19, and ye shall smite every fenced city and every choice city, and shall fell every good tree, and stop all the wells of water, and mar every good piece of the land with stones. What he's saying there is you're going to fill the farmland full of stones. He said you're going to destroy the fenced cities or the walled cities, the protected cities. You're going to take down all their timber. You're going to close up all the wells for the Moabites, so they're not going to have anything to drink. You're just going to completely decimate the nation is the point with these 3 armies. And mar every good piece of land with stones. Everywhere that is good for farming, you're just going to fill that property with stones, so it's not going to be good for anything. And it came to pass in the morning, when the meat offering was offered, that behold, there came water by the way of Edom, and the country was filled with water. In that way, those trenches were filled full of water. I mean, it's amazing. And now that's a miracle in itself. But the next part here, this to the end, it's really remarkable. And when all the Moabites heard that the kings were come up to fight against them, they gathered all that were able to put on armor and upward and stood in the border. So here come the 3 kings. And so the Moabites take up their position on the border of Moab, because that's where they're going to meet these 3 kings that are coming into their property. All right. I mean, so this is what Jehoram was talking about. We're going to confront the army of Moab. And then it says this in verse 22. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun shone upon the water. So in the morning, with the angle of the sun shining on this water. Now, first of all, the night before there wasn't any water. Okay, so this is going to be a first-time view. And so what they're witnessing here doesn't look like anything they've ever seen before is the point. All right, because now there's water where there wasn't any water, and now the sun's coming up, and the angle of the sun on the water makes it look red. And the sun shone upon the water, and the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood. They're looking down on the field, and what they're saying is that that's not water down there, that's blood. That's a lot of blood, which means there must have been a conflict down there. That's what's coming up here. Their eyes are going to deceive them. Doesn't that happen? I love that. Can you trust your eyes? I won't trust anything I can't see. And then put a pencil in a glass of water and watch it bend. Can I do that? Yeah, there we go. See my bent pen? Oh yeah, trust your eyes. Oh yeah, that's just a crazy illustration we know about the refraction of light. You want to trust God before you trust your eyes, right? I mean, magicians, sleight of hand is enough reason as well not to trust your eyes. So all those out there that say, well, I won't believe it until I see it. Well, even if you see it, how do you know if what you saw was true? See, that's the point. I mean, I saw a lady saw it in half. I saw it. She was sawed in half, and then they put them back together. Yeah. These Moabites are trusting their eyes, and it's going to bring them to ruin. All right? They don't have God to call upon. If Moab had somebody to call upon, they could have said, God Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, what am I looking at down there? And God could have told them, well, this is a setup. Stay where you are. All right? But they don't. They don't have any other resource other than their own observation, and that observation is faulty. They're going to make this incredibly foolish step based on what they see. And, of course, this is by God's design. It can't be any other way than we have it in the Scripture. But this is what's happening. He said, and they said, this is the blood. The kings are surely slain, and they have smitten one another. Now, therefore, Moab to the spoil. Now, think about Moab. Does it seem possible that the three kings, Jehoram, Jehoshaphat, and the king of Edom, could have got at odds with one another and turned on one another? When I read that, I say, yeah, that's conceivable. I mean, these guys, no telling, all right? Especially Jehoram. I mean, that guy, he's followed after his dad. Something might have come up, but that's what they're concluding. So their eyes are telling them that water is blood, and then they're putting like 2 and 2 together and saying, those kings, they killed each other before they even got to us, which is a possibility, at least in their mind. And it says, and when they came, and now they are not coming down to attack. They have left their fortifications. They're actually passing over beyond the boundary of Moab, all right, into Edom, because all they're going down there for is the spoil. They're going to take everything that was left, all the cattle, all the horses, all the chariots. I mean, they're just going to, anything that's of value, they're just going to go down and take it like they've just come across this great treasure trove, all right, because the kings killed themselves, and they're going to take what's left because there's nobody left to take it back. That's what they're saying. So they're out of combat mode now, and they're into creating havoc and just going down there and taking everything, all right, ransacking the place for everything of value. So they're coming down to what they think is this blood, which is really just these trenches of water in the morning sun. It says, and when they came to the camp of Israel, the Israelites rose up and smote the Moabites because they weren't down there to fight. They were down there just to ransack. So they fled before them. But when they went forward, and they went forward smiting the Moabites even in their country, because they came across, and then after they come down, now they're chasing them into Moab. It goes on, and in verse 25, this is confirmation that what they did to Moab is what God said through Elisha was going to happen. And they beat down the cities, and every good piece of land cast every man his stone and filled it. They stopped up all the wells of water, so they weren't going to be of any value. You're going to have to all dig them out again. And felled all the good trees. Only in Kirhathaseth left they the stones thereof. Howbeit the slingers went about it and smote it. All right, that is, here we have the Israeli slingers, and they just had at it like sharpshooters. All right, and they were able to smote that or destroy that city as well. And then it says in verse 26, it says, these slingers are amazing. All right, now the first time we hear about the slingshot is David, but we find out about these guys all through the Bible, how these are remarkable marksmen. All right, because the first time we hear about David slinging that stone and hitting Goliath, we say, wow, that was some shot. But you see, a skilled slinger could do that. Anybody could do that. A skilled slinger. Now, that was the hand of God. That's David. But this is the proficiency of these men. All right, before there's guns, all right, there are slings, and they sling these stones, and these guys were just amazing. All right. Verse 26. Verse 26 and verse 27 are just horrible verses. It closes with this. And when I was a kid, reading this is terrible stuff. Because Moab is just, they're worshiping gods too, other gods, idols. And when the king of Moab saw that the battle was too sore for him, now the king of Moab, let's see, it hit Elisha, king of Moab, the sheep master. When he saw that things were just too tough, he can't take on 3 kings. He's was too sore for him. He took with him 700 men that drew swords. So he's got 700 soldiers to break through even unto the king of Edom. That is, he's trying to go after the king of Edom, which he considers is the weak link in the 3. He's not Jehoram. He's not going after Jehoshaphat. He's going after the king of Edom. So he's got 700 guys. He can see he's being destroyed, so he's going to go after the king of Edom here. But he couldn't. I mean, the battle was lost. It was too far gone. Even with his 700, he couldn't do it. And then verse 27. Verse 27 is in the Bible. I think I hope it shocks us. It is a horrible verse. It is when you believe something that is not true to the place where you will sacrifice your own son, firstborn son. And I think of my firstborn son. I think of my 3 sons and my daughter and how much you love them. But how perverse must a religion be to think that if I were to sacrifice my own son, that I am going to find the favor of that God and maybe win the day or be able to secure my kingdom. That is what's going on here. This is what was happening all over Canaan when Joshua came in. When he came in and started wiping these places out, they all did this. All right, this human sacrifice. The closest thing we get to this human sacrifice now, and I'm not going to say it's religion, but they're the really liberal people, like the Planned Parenthood people, almost speak of it in those terms, is abortion. All right, how someone would be willing to kill their own child. All right, and here it is. It's here in this verse. It says in verse 27, and I don't know how old this boy was. It's his eldest son. And he took his eldest son that should have reigned in his stead, heir to the throne. Elisha does. And offered him for a burnt offering upon the wall to his God. A burnt offering. He burns his boy because he wants to win. He's asking for his God to come down and help him. So he wants to get his God's attention, so he sacrifices his own son. Can you imagine? This is an ancient story. But this is not the only time this happens. You're just reading it here in 2 Kings 3. This is Moab. He sacrifices his own son, burnt offering upon the wall. And there was great indignation against Israel. After you sacrifice your son as a burnt offering to try to win the victory over that nation, which is your enemy, how angry now are you at that enemy? Not only have these guys destroyed your nation, your cities, your wells, your fields. Not only has that happened, decimated Moab, not only has that happened, but it has driven the king to sacrifice his own son, which will never be forgotten because it is so corrupt. He's a lost man. I mean, this guy, Elisha, is not going to be in heaven. I mean, we don't know. But as far as what the biblical text says, he's not going to be in heaven. He's going to live the rest of his life not only bearing his sins, but the sin of murdering his own boy. How can you survive as a man after doing that? Every element of your old nature is just going to come out. All right? It's terrible. He says, and there was great indignation. Not that there wasn't already indignation, because he breaks off the trade deal with him at the beginning of this chapter. But after all of this, I mean, it is great indignation. And it says, against Israel, and they departed from him and returned to their own land. And then everybody went home. That's how that chapter ends. So we have the miracle of Elisha. We have we just went through it like verse by verse, but a great victory is won here. But we can see that how messy this whole chapter is. It's messy. We got 3 kings. We got Elisha. We have one king that doesn't want to even tell him about Elisha. It has to be the servant. Elisha says, I don't want to talk to Jehoram. The only reason I'm talking to anybody is because of Jehoshaphat. And this is what you do after he plays a little music and there's water in the trenches. It looks like blood. The Moabites make a terrible strategic error, come down and are whipped by the three kings. In the middle of it, Elisha thinks maybe he can take on the king of Edom, but it's not enough. And to win the day, to think that he can appeal to his God, he sacrifices his own son. I mean, that is 2 Kings chapter 3. All right. Well, the Lord bless you. You have a great day, and tomorrow's Saturday. I don't do devotions. I have my morning message, and you can see that the podcast that I mentioned some time ago is on for tonight at 4. So I think it's posted here on Daily Armor, and so it should be a really interesting, thought-provoking, meaningful discussion. I'm sure it will be. Okay, Lord bless you. You have a great day. We'll see you. Bye.